Let's see what we got here. Just finished playing 1861. That's the back of the box. 1861. 18XX game, no question there. However, it's significantly different from any other XX game I've played. I can't tell you it's my favorite XX game, but what I can say is this much. It's definitely in the top 3 of those I've played. It's been a long time I've been thinking, hey, do I like 1830 more? Do I like 1856 more? Both are... 1830 has this real nice... very simple but brutal stock and economic system to it, and it seems very clean. And the only games that are equally clean that I've seen in terms of that were the original 1829, which I think lacks the brutal aspect completely. And it, between the components and the way it felt like it dragged the whole game, and the lack of any real ability to smack someone around, it just didn't feel like an interesting game to me. 1830 has always had a really great place in my heart, and I consider it the first of the sort of the real 18XXs in the sense that so much was based on it afterwards. But, and 56 has a harsher element in it, but it feels a little gimmicky. The loans coming out, it's as though it was a game that was designed to be harsher, and that was all it was really designed for. It's a very interesting game. I may like it more, just because it is harsh. This one lacks a lot of that harshness, but there's such cool stuff going on, and the decisions, I think, involving when you buy, when you want to change from a minor up to a full corporation, the flexibility in those decisions, which blows 2038 out of the water. I mean, in 2038, the decisions are so obvious. Maybe they are in this too. Maybe I'm just, so new to it that it's exciting to me, but it'll become less so. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like there are a lot more options at any given time in this. Then in 30, then in 56, It just feels like you have more choices in this than in any other game that I've played. So this may actually end up being the top one for me. Part of it is so different from all the others. And that's part of what made 30 so special and makes it difficult for me to supplant it, is, hey, it was the first of the ones that I really like. Well, this is such a divergence and so interesting that it has a special place as well. Here's the problem. I've been out of the XX world and never really was all that in it. I only saw the mainline games for the most part. 30, 29, 53 sort of, but very limited. 35, 56, 70. The ones put out and released with big releases in the U.S. This is really, other than, this is the first one that I own by a real company that's a little more off the beaten track. From what I see, 41 looks really exciting. I want something that allows the major companies to merge as well. I mean, as soon as I started playing this, I said, hey, how come I can't merge my majors? I'm going to make my own game. Well, I don't have to. Somebody else has, of course, thought of that already. What can we say about components? Good overall. Very good for something that's not a company I'm not used to. I know Z-Man I've heard of, but they're not really, I think, the major producer here. I mean, they're listed here, but I think the major producer is this JLKM. I'm not sure the major distributor, I don't know. One thing they're clearly responsible for is the money, which is probably the big thing that I've got against the components. But it's got a nice hard board, it's got nice tiles. Some of the games, 53 or whatever, had kind of iffy tiles. Rulebook's a bit iffy. The not so much how it's designed and laid out. And I think the rules were fairly clear, but the fact that they needed to put out a FAQ this size, to me, says a lot of people weren't getting it. And I do still have the one question that bothers me, but I think I'm happy with my solution to it, and happier than I would be with what they're likely to answer with. It's also so different from other XX games that, you know what would have been really nice, and I've seen in a lot of XXs? How's this different from the other XX games? You know, a couple of pages of that, sure, you still got to do the whole rule book, but a couple of pages of that would be a really helpful reference for those of us who are used to some of the more common games. One of the problems is the designer, what does he recognize? He recognizes 29, no question. I mean, they all should. But after that, 37 and 41, no mention to 30, which this is very, very clearly got some relationship to with that stock market. Of course, that's another trashing game. How many times do you want to mention it? Okay. What else do we have about this one? I've said a couple of times, I don't think it's as harsh and unforgiving as some of the others, in the sense that you're not going to get knocked out of the game. But on the other hand, you might end up playing in a fairly long game. It's not it doesn't feel like a huge XX game, but a fairly long game in which you have absolutely no chance. Every XX game is this way. I kind of like you can't bail out, and you sort of can. You can sell off your companies and walk away from the table. But the other XX games always had the, you know, if you screwed up royally, there's a good chance the game was just over. And putting 6 hours in when, you know, after 2, you're sure that you have, you know, just nothing in the game. It's always kind of a disappointing feeling. I've never been there, I think, in an XX game. I've been in the place where I'm pretty sure I can't win fairly early on, but I don't think I've ever been in the place where I'm sitting on just so far down behind the pack early on. I think that can happen in this. I'm not sure how early it can happen. Oh, what else about this one? So one of the things that, yeah, I already talked about the merge dynamics. Yeah, I can't really think of a lot more to say. I said so much during the game, and I don't really want to repeat myself a lot. Let me skim through the rules and see what I particularly like and what I don't. Okay, so first of all, big thing, having minor companies in the game. That's always interesting. The 50-50 split is really cool. They're obviously very valuable. The privates, perhaps less valuable. The way the initial stock round falls is very different from any other game. Every private's put up for auction in order. No bidding out of turn on them. Then the first miner is forced out for auction. Same way, the money that's made from that gets divided up. It gets put into the company treasury and sets the share value. And there's something different. There's a share value for those miners. And as they run, they increase in value. And if you're able to convert them into a corporation, either through a merger or direct conversion, the value goes in there. I really like that. Fixed 2 rounds. Except for on that last turn of the game, which is kind of skewy, and you'll have to see that. Has loans. But these aren't 1856 style loans. These are loans that can only be taken out for specific purposes. You can build track. First of all, you have to need the money. You can use it for track. You can use it for a train purchase that you absolutely have to make, i.e. you're out of trains. And I think that's it. Very, very limited. So it's not like 56 where you just swoop up all the loans you can so that you can make lots and lots of money off lots of little trains. Starting a public company. You can't start one right away. Once your miner gets to the right price value, or once you hook up with enough miners that you can merge, you can create a public corporation that way. Otherwise, you have to wait until the 4 train comes out to even buy one. But then when you can buy it, it starts on 2 shares. And it runs off the money that's put right into the treasury. It owns all the certificates at the beginning of the game. That's very different from the 30 flavor. More like 2038 with growth corporations, just in feel. You have the ability to redeem stock. If there's stock in the bank pool, you can buy it up with your corporation. You can use loans for that. Running trains. Little different from some of the other games. No double hitting cities. I kind of dislike that. That led to the question that I have, because that's not well defined in the rules. And then there's the biggie of the Russian State Railroad. And again, this is not the Prussian, and this is not the Canadian National Railway. This is actually not a bad place. First of all, I mean, the Prussian's not a bad thing. You don't own stock in this, though. The players don't get anything off of it. It's just a place to drop companies when you no longer need them, or when you're forced to. So miners go in there possibly just by having the wrong trains on them. When their trains rust, at the 4 train, at the 6 train, and then they automatically fall in on the 8 train, they just fall into it. And you get the cash back. Now that's different from like the Canadian National, where you get, I don't remember if you get any, you get crap shares of that thing. In this case, you just get your stock value. And if you have loans, well, your stock value goes down a little bit. Same thing with the public corporations. You get the stock value if they fall in. Raping companies, it doesn't look like you rape them and hand them to someone. I guess that's possible, but it doesn't seem worth the effort. You pretty much pillage the company and then dump it into the Russian railroad. You get your cool stock value back, and now you got more trains on your company. Now, I obviously didn't play that with full understanding of what it meant, but it is a different feeling. So now that Russian railroad runs. Why does it run? It's just there to pump the trains out. And once you get the first 8 train out, it doesn't even have to anymore. There's no bankruptcy in the game. The bank can go bankrupt, but it sounds like it's very unlikely. And it looks like the game has really got one ending. which is one intended ending, which is the A train comes out, you run some more operating rounds, and you sit down and count your money afterwards. So it's a different game. It's a very different game, and it's going to take a couple more plays for me to really understand where I want to put it. I'm giving it a rating of around an 8. I'm very happy with it. From what I understand, there are others of this kind of family of the XX games, and I'm not sure this is the best of that series. I like it a lot. I think it's at a very good level. But, like I said, I'm immediately thinking, I want a little bit more. I want a little bit more. I want it a little harsher. I want it... 41, I've heard things about it that I can see really turn people off, though. This one, I think, is at that level where it's still playable. It still seems to play out fairly fast. 1830 fast, say. It doesn't have that long, dragged-out period at the end where you're just, making bank off the work you already did. And it is not, while it may not be as harsh as 1830, it definitely gives you a lot of opportunities to take advantage of the system. 1829, you're looking to build your track. To set up your runs over the long term of the game. And 35, I'm not sure what you're doing. I've never really had a good grasp on that game. There it felt like, and I guess I'm sure somebody's going to disagree with me here because there's fans of 35 who say, I've grown very fond of it because it seems like there's a lot of little maneuvering and stuff. I just don't see it. I mean, to me, 35, the maneuvering is, I'm going to run my companies as hard as I can. That just works. I mean, sorry, it's an XX game. You want to make money, so you run hard. You run everything you can as hard as you can. You might make some little hold off on buying a train because you're going to get a better one if you wait. But the way the companies come out one after another in this fixed order and everything, I never feel like I have any option in the game. I feel like the game is decided by that by the initial bidding on the privates, the minors, whatever the hell they throw out there. I think there's something else too, but I'm not sure. But it feels like the whole game is decided on that. And maybe I'm completely wrong there, but I feel like this one, I'm constantly making decisions that, could screw me, but could also benefit me tremendously. And I like having that decision making throughout the game. I don't like feeling very much locked in. I like the fact, even though I may not ever dump a company in this game, I don't think that there's ever a time when I'll hand off a company to someone. But I may not defend one that greatly because they don't look like they're worth as much as I think they are in some of the other games. Alright, so anyway, I gave this a provisional rating of 8. I don't think it's going to go lower than that, but after a few more playings it might go up into the 9 realm, maybe even higher. I really don't know. Anyway, it's a pretty good one. I would not suggest it as the first XX game for anyone. I think 1830 is fine for that. I think that worked great for me. I know people think it's a little harsh, but I don't think that's a bad way to learn. I think this one, it's too confusing. I mean, I had trouble walking away understanding all the lessons that I learned from it. It's definitely not as stately as 30. The 18AL, 18GA look like 30. They look like smaller games of 30. 1830 also has the short game. I think those are the best to start with, to tell you the truth. All right.